Hey, what up guys, it's Sick, and today I want to talk to you about MQ2GroundSpawns. So this is a project that Chat with This Name and I have been working on. You know, we joked about making this plugin for a long time. One of the first things I ever did when I started hanging out with MacroQuest was a shiny collect macro, and I did some cool stuff in the shiny collect macro, like redetermine the location to get the shiny if it was off mesh, and I found some cool bugs with the ground TLOs and all sorts of other stuff. And we joked, you know, a year ago about turning it into a plugin, and we decided to do that recently as we were trying to get our shoulders, you know, all the collections for our shoulders in PBL. So there it is. Let's jump into it. I'm going to explain some stuff real quick, and then I will demonstrate it functioning and talk about how you would integrate it into a macro or use the TLO information to do stuff. So MQ2GroundSpawns, it'll collect items in a list for you by zone. So you can specify if you want to get X in zone blah, or a global list like glowing globes I add to my global list. So any zone I go to, if I turn it on, I'm gonna go find glowing globes. You can also set items specifically, like acorns or apples or whatever the fuck. You can set an item to go and search in that particular zone. So if you go to whatever zone and there are some branches there, or some sticks you need to pick up, you can add that to that zone's list. And when you're there, you can say go get them, and it'll get anything that's global or anything on that list. It uses nav path length instead of radial distance, and it's smart enough to compare distances, skip unreachable items, and find alternative paths. This is pretty amazing. We will actually stop traveling to an item if it's been picked up while we're traveling to it, and we will also redirect mid-travel to an item if another item matching our list spawns closer to us while we're on the way. So this is just like, hey, I'm gonna go over there and get the thing, and like something pops next to you, you're like, whoa, I got a thing right here. I'm just gonna grab this little thing right here, and okay, now I'm gonna keep running and go to the next one that's close to me. According to these notes here, it'll actually bring you coffee if that happens to be a ground spawn. If it happens to be a ground, that was a joke. That's chat's joke, by the way. I didn't write that joke. So any hate, please send to hate with this name, chat with this name. That guy down there, send that to him. So we recommend using this with a rogue because it's really easy to use hide and sneak and SOS2, and you can avoid really large amount of C-invis mobs. There are some exceptions. For example, if you go to the Neriac 4th quarter, you know, that Prince area, Royal area, whatever, there's that dude there. He will smoke your ass, and you do not want that. So there's a couple places, you know, that see through SOS2. But this thing's great. It'll run forever. It's not a macro, so you can run other macros with it. So if you have let's say you have a mission that you flip for experience, or you're doing the mission for completion, if you get to the point in the mission that shinies spawn, you can have a section in your macro that would look something like, let me move these notes over here. Something like this. So you could do, if I don't have any if we have ground spawns valid count. So before a ground spawns gets turned on, that count will show how many ground spawns are in the zone, because we haven't determined that they're invalid yet. So we just say, yes, there are ground spawns, and as far as we know right now, they are valid. Okay. And then, so then we say if ground spawns is not active, then set our current count to ground spawns valid count and then turn it on. Okay. And then while ground spawns has a valid count and current count, it does not equal the actual valid count, then say how many are remaining in current and delay and stay in that while loop, and because you turn ground active on, the plugin is going to go grab all the stuff, And then once you pop out of this, if it is active, turn it off, and if you have anything on your cursor, auto inventory. So this is just a real easy thing. You would turn this into a sub or an include in your flipping or instance farming macro or whatever other macro you have. That would automatically determine if you have ground spawns in the zone. You turn on active, which then does the check to see if you have stuff available to you, and then if you do, you will go and get them. So let's show you what this looks like in game. Okay. So I got my little rogue here. I'm in plane of health because this is just really simple zone. A lot of ground spawns and no aggro, so it's real easy for me to show you this. MQ clear. So if I do ground spawns dot active, not loaded yet. Plug in MQ2GroundSpawns load. Okay, so we're in zone. Active is not turned on yet, so we just have the plugin loaded, and we can do /ground and see all of the info for it. Make this so it's easy to read. Font 5. We'll do this real quick. Okay. Bam. All right. So it says here we have active, activates automatically collecting ground spawns on true 10 false 0. All right, we can add the name of the item to the list to collects in your current zone. We can remove the name of the item to remove the name from the list to collects in your current zone. We can add a global, adds name of the item to the list to collects globally. Remove global, removes the name of the item to collect globally. Invalid, report or reset, and counter, reset, or show. So these will report a list of items that are currently off mesh. Resets clears that list of invalid items. You have counter. You can reset your shiny items or all counters or show them. So if we do ground counter show, we'll spit out we've collected 0 shinies and 0 items. And then if you're, let's say you change zones and you decide to do something else, well, it's still gonna have how many shinies you collected. So if you want to reset it, you can just reset it. All right, so let's turn this bad boy on, ground active on, and off we go to the races. This is bad mesh. All right, so we got a shiny, grabbing our next one. So if you notice, it says, you know, going to blah and collected. If it found a shiny and the location was bad, meaning that the location of the shiny was off mesh, it would try and calculate to see if there is a location that we can get to that we can then pick up the shiny from. Now obviously this uses MQ2 nav, so you need to have clean meshes. There's actually a spot in this zone at the front that I need to clean up on my mesh, or turn off the you know, dynamically update paths as you go, because you get stuck in a little thing where there's like a layer underneath the layer, so you get stuck. But as you can see here, we're getting shinies. We'll do this non-stop. Pretty great. Let's see if we can get it to say so with Nav UI, or with MQ2 Nav, you can do periodic path updates, and this is hit or miss. If your mesh isn't so great, turning this off will help. And if you're like right now, I had to turn it back on just because of the getting stuck on a rock. Wanted it to recalculate. This is like the dynamic updates as you go, instead of picking one path and then running there as soon as you start the path. So if we were to check echo ground spawns dot valid count, it's going to tell us we have 14. We check our invalid count. It tells us we have 0 invalid shinies right now. So all 14 of these remaining shinies up are in valid locations. So we're not going to skip any. Now, valid locations again means we can get to it, or get close enough to it that we can pick it up. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's just off mesh, it means it's invalid for the purposes of us being able to grab it, which is one of the great things about this plugin is we'll find a location close to it, and if that location is in a position that it can pick it up even though it is off mesh, we will run and grab it. So I'm gonna swap here to another zone, a zone that's particularly shitty with unreachable shinies, so you can see what that looks like. But first what we'll do is we'll do ground active off. Boom, we'll immediately stop any navigation and stop what we're doing and go. All right, so here we are in Stratos, or Stratos, whatever you want to call this place. And this place is pretty notorious for shinies being in fucked up spots. So we expect that fully. Now, if you remember before, I said that if you do GroundSpawns.active before you valid count before you turn active on, it'll say, so we have 12 valid count, okay? So they haven't actually been invalidated yet. They haven't been checked for validity. We see them, and as far as we know, they're good to go because we know that they're there, right? So in that macro, like I showed before, we would swap over to it. Boom. So this is the part in your flip macro or whatever. You would have if ground spawns valid count, meaning right now I'm in the thing, boom, they're now 12. I'm gonna say if it's not active, turn active on. Okay, and then while it's active, it's gonna keep counting and spit out, and then once once the current count does not equal the valid count, it's gonna turn it off. So it'll just automatically toggle on and off. So that's particularly useful for zones that you aren't going to have respawns of the shinies. If you are just doing it just in an open zone that you're not waiting on respawns, you can just leave ground active on, and you obviously don't care about macros. So let me just be clear, you don't need to run a macro. Just the way we have this designed allows you to use a macro to toggle it on and off while you're doing missions or flipping stuff. So let's turn this on, ground active on. So it's gonna do the check. So if you notice, it added a bunch of them to invalid paths, meaning all of these ones we can't get to. So if we do valid count now, we have one valid count, echo ground spawns.invalid count. If we check invalid count, we have 11 invalid. So if you remember, there were 12 originally when we came. There were 12 valid count because we hadn't checked to see if they were invalid yet. And we say, okay, there are 12 here. Let's turn ground active on. It's going to do all of its checks to see if there is a location that we can get to around it. Now, sometimes that the being able to get to it is a matter of either A, your mesh needs to be adjusted or updated, or B, sometimes EverQuest just likes to stick shit out in space that you can't actually get unless if you are a superhero. And this zone in particular is very, very, very bad. But if you notice, I'm just going to automatically run over to that glowing globe at that location that it says, and I pick that bad boy up. Now, if you run out of ground spawns, like when I pick this one up, we're only going to have invalid ground spawns left until another one spawns, and hopefully that one then spawns in a location we can get to, and if it does, we'll automatically go and get it. Now, something to keep in mind, if you're just sitting and farming ground spawns, and you've probably seen this with other macros, or, you know, other getting them yourselves, is if you are farming shinies in a particular zone, and you get all the ones for a long period of time that are reachable, they'll eventually only be spawned in spots that we can't get to, either through navigation or through whatever. Like, a good example of this is Plane of Smoke. If you set MQ2GroundSpawns to go get shinies in Plane of Smoke, and he's rolling around, you're grabbing all the shinies, and a little bit later you're like, huh, I'm not getting as many shinies anymore, and you look on your map, you'll see that they're all on a fucked up mountain or on a ledge somewhere that you can't actually navigate to. And that's just because over time, you know, things spawn in bad spots in game and you can't get to it. So it's something to keep an eye on, and good stuff. All right, I'm going to go run over to a zone that has like acorns or some shit and show you what that looks like. Be right back. All right, guys, we're back and we are here in Misty Thicket. And Misty Thicket, we want to get the Misty Thicket acorns. Now, the ground spawns are called green leaf, but it's actually tricky. They're actually called like star green leaf. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So we need to do ground add, and we're just going to add it just for this zone. We don't want it as a global item because there are not going to be these elsewhere. So we're just going to add green leaf. I don't know why they're star green leaf, but we need to add green leaf. We're going to add green leaf, and you'll see here added star green leaf, search list, star green leaf, glowing, global search, glowing globe. If we do ground active on, you'll see that we're searching for stuff. So there was a bunch of invalid paths. This zone is notorious for putting shit inside trees where we can't get to. Like this one here, we think we can get to it. We actually get to it and it's too far away. So watch this. It's going to try and grab the thing, and it says we've tried to get the same item 10 times and failed. We're going to mark it invalid. So it was something that we thought we had a valid path to via our mesh or whatever, and we couldn't get to it. So we tried it 10 times, and then we said, all right, fuck it. We're going to add this particular item to the invalid path, and we're going to go on to the next one. So we're going to the next green leaf, and we should get ourselves a little acorn. Acorn time, get us some acorns. Acorn time, get us some acorns. Acorn time, get us some acorns. Getting some acorns. I got ourselves an acorn. All right. Got another acorn. And we're off. Getting mad acorns up in this. Yo, dog, heard you like acorns. And then, you know, as we're doing this, we can ground and ground counter show. And I don't know why it says 0 items. Oh, that's weird. Picking an item up isn't adding it to the counter. Okay. Oh, now here's something important. If your dude ends up off mesh, probably can't hear it. We have a thing built in that you will make some beeping sounds if your dude ends up off mesh. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be running around with ground active on, because if you get off mesh, it's going to say, hey, you are off mesh and have a beep. Enjoy your beep. So if you notice, we don't have any ground spawns valid count. So we don't have any valid counts right now, so we're just chilling. Now there's still a bunch of stuff in zone. These are just things we can't get to for whatever particular reason. They're inside a tree, up on a ledge, all that kind of stuff. So you're still going to run into issues where you're going to need to manually intervene or just suck up the fact that those items are unreachable. I don't even know how to get over here. All right, I'm going to manually run over here real quick and just take a look at and see where these particular items are. My guess is they're inside trees, and our mesh thinks that we can get to them. Can't. Yeah. So this particular item is probably at the top of the tree. So we can't get to it. And actually, let's check it. Item target echo ground dot grab. Yeah, it's 83 feet away, and we need to be within 20 feet of it. And that's how I found out that it was star green leaf. By the way, I did item target, and then I tried to grab it, and it says item star green leaf targeted. So that's how I knew that the name had a star in it. Just adding green leaf is not going to do it. That's not the name of the. But so this is MQ2GroundSpawns. We will include a copy of the code that has like some suggestions for the macro. here. So we'll include this in the documentation just as like how you would use it if you wanted to add this to your mission or whatever. I mentioned this here about the list, so it makes the list in whatever zone, and general settings. Mine's all like all over the place because I've been messing with stuff. But if you notice, Misty Thicket, item list, star green leaf. Now this INI file is not intended to be edited directly. The important part here is that there's a pipe at the beginning and end. If you came in here and you slap some shit in here without a beginning and end pipe, you're going to have undesired results. So this is something you probably don't want to edit manually unless you know what you're doing. And then we will have the TLO members posted. So ground spawns, output ground spawns. Active is the plugin actively trying to grab items. So right now we are active, even though we're not doing anything. Ground spawns.active. You'll see that it's, oh, I turned it off. On. So active is on, and obviously we're not moving because we don't have any ground spawns. But if we sat here long enough, like, oh, I'm not even showing in game. So if I sat here long enough and active was on and one spawned and we would check to see if it's a reachable location, and if it's a reachable location, we're gonna run over to it. But so we go back to here, and we got invalid count, how many items are currently on the invalid list. Valid count, how many items the plugin thinks it can get to. So again, when you come in a zone the first time, before you turn on active on, it's just going to return how many shinies it sees. Because it hasn't invalidated being able to get to any of them, it just says, yes, we have valid counts. And then turning on active will do the actual check and then sort them either into the invalid count or leave them in the valid count. And then we have item count, shiny count, and total count. These spit out how many non-shiny items have been picked up, how many collectibles have been picked up, and how many collectibles and non-collectibles have been picked up. So that's what we got for MQ2 ground spawns. I'm going to try and chop this up and make some sort of video usable and friendly and fun. But we will talk to you guys soon.